John Gallagher. How are you doing today? Welcome to Gem Drop.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here. I love the positivity. It's a great way to start a Friday. Um, yeah, I've met Tikal, I've met Emmanuel and Rendy. So it's been great to get to know you all guys all. And then the my wife's a Cancer, so I guess I probably could use some more advice to let her know or what I can do for her this month.
John. When God speaks, just gotta listen, bro. See, we just had a whole camp. You came at the right time, at the right season. You meant to be here. Your cancer wife put you right in the place so you could understand how to be married for the next 100 years, bro. Like, you gotta thank God. Sometimes just don't question it. Accept it. Cancer season.
Hey, we're all here for a reason, you
Come,
know.
that is. When is her birthday?
The 8th.
Let's go. Let's go. So John, you're here for, first of all, can you tell us about yourself
Sure.
first?
Yeah, so my name's John Gallagher. I grew up in Watertown. I own my own home inspection company. So we do commercial property inspections, we do home inspections. I got into this and kind of I like to hear what you guys are saying. I really like the intros. I honestly feel like I am here to help people. Like that is kind of like the mission. That's what gets me up. I feel like it makes me feel good at the end of the day, knowing that I've been able to, take care of a first-time home buyer or guide them through like probably the most stressful process in buying a home, is that 2 or 3 hours of a home inspection. Um, I taught high school for 16 years. And in doing that, I also kind of moonlighted as a home inspector. So I got started in New Jersey and moved back home. My Yankee fans kicked me out of that state, and right now I live in Belmont. I have 4 boys, 16 down to 7, and what kind of brings me here today is I'm the president of ASHI New England, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors. And
Mm,
what that organization is, it's dedicated to education for home inspectors to help raise the standards of home inspectors and to keep them at the front of their field with information.
got it. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm looking at your bio. You also using construction as well.
Yeah, so when I was in college, I framed houses, and
Mm,
when I got out of school, I worked for an engineering firm in Secaucus, New Jersey, and was a project manager, going
Yep.
to some actually worked on school projects, which was kind of unusual. I was in Paterson, New Jersey, for their new high school at the time. This was 20 plus years ago. And when I left teaching in 2015, I went into development. So I partnered with somebody and we started buying two families, converting them to condos, and then we turned into tear downs and new builds. And we had one bad deal, so I kind of split that partnership. But it's all good. It was all a great lesson. I learned a lot,
Yeah.
and I started my home inspection company in 2020.
And you also inspect commercial property as well.
I do. So I have a pretty big side of my business is commercial, and we service all of New England. I've been down to Maryland and Virginia for some commercial property inspections, and I also do the phase 1 21E
Ooh,
environmentals. So
okay.
that's a lot of times when you do the commercial property inspections, the banks want to make sure that the land is clean,
Yep.
and that's the first stage of the due diligence. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right. So we're here today to talk about these new rules, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. All right. And this is a safe space. Honesty is best, right? How it looks. Did inspections slow down?
Oh, for sure. I'd say, like the brief history
Mhm.
of it is that in 2006, 7, it was rare, but it was people would do it. They'd waive their inspection to make their offer more competitive. Speeding up. Like when I bought my house, I lost out on like it was the seventh bid that I made on a house, the seventh house, and in all of them, I had to waive my inspection. I had to pay over asking, but that like I was qualified to do that, because I had a construction background. Starting around I think 2015 and 16, this way to strengthen your offer by waiving the inspection contingency filtered down to a lot of the buyers that were not sophisticated or were first time home buyers, and it did a lot of damage to some people. Some people really got stuck with a bomb of a house because they had to waive their inspection. And in that, in the course of that, that really affected home inspectors. It affected their business. I think at one point between 2020 and 2023, I'd say 80% of transactions did not have home inspections in like the Metro Boston area. Um,
Wait, say it again. 2000 and when?
I'd say
20 to
like two,
23?
yeah.
80%?
I
Wow.
mean, I had a real estate attorney who's a friend of mine, said between January and June of 2022, he did 50 closings and two had home inspections. Um, so, in that, some people would get a home inspection after they bought. And which is great. Not everyone would, but it was in those inspections that really uncovered a lot of the problems that people inherited. That not so much that they wouldn't have bought the house if they knew about it beforehand, but they would have been more prepared to handle it.
Got you. Okay, I was just about to say that because in that time, like rates was low, homes was lower. So we're talking about probably 150 to probably $200,000 lower. And then again, your monthly bill is a lot less. So I'm thinking if your home, didn't need, three to $400,000 worth of work, or even $200,000 worth of work, it might have been a good deal still, you know,
Hmm.
if you had the funds.
Right.
But in that time versus now, maybe it was a good decision. But like you said, they would have still probably purchased a home, but understood what they're getting themselves into. But if they didn't, maybe if they didn't make maybe if they didn't waive inspection, they would not have been in the home. So,
Right. Yeah.
and that's why we're here today is because we're not, the rules are changing where I guess it's a fair um, um, playing field for everyone across the industry.
I think
Um,
I think that's the goal. The ultimate, like what the legislature wanted to do is to try to create fairness and transparency. And like, and I think they looked at some of those harmed buyers and said that that didn't need to happen. If people like capitalism works when there's transparency, and the home inspection is just part of it. Like, let me understand what I'm buying. And we know that like there are inspections that cause friction. It's a certainly another step in the real estate process, but all in all, at least I think we're protecting people and giving them like that toolbox to know what they need to do with the home. Like realizing like maybe I don't renovate the kitchen this year, maybe I really got to fix that roof. Like that's where the priority should go. I'll fix the roof and then we'll do the kitchen the next year, just, to prevent, mold and all other sorts of problems.
I have a question for you, John. You say you're an investor, developer. You looking at a home today, are you getting an inspection?
For me as a developer, um, no, no. And I think the reason, why is, at least for my property and my model, is we were doing mostly guts. So we're gonna gut it, and we'll deal with those problems when we come to it. Um,
And how
so
about you buying a home for your family to live in? It's a nice home.
for me, oh yeah, I'm for sure. I think partly because when you buy a house, it's emotional, and
Oh, talk to
and
me. I agree. Talk to
and
me.
so like, it's good to have someone who's not emotionally invested in it. And that was the advice I got early in my career. And you're right. I mean, you fall in love. You fall in love with the house, the idea of living in there. And then sometimes you need that objective, perspective. And it probably doesn't change the trajectory of where it goes, but man, it does sober you up and get you ready for the work that you need to do.
Real estate is very emotional, very emotional. It's not a lot of logic behind real estate because once you love something, you feel good in the space. You in your mind, you try your best to make everything else work. Yeah, there's no bus stop, close by. Don't worry, I can ride a bike. It's not four bedrooms. Don't worry, two kids could sleep in one bedroom.
Hey,
So
they
it's
did in my
it's
house. That's what I did. I put them in one bedroom.
yeah, so everything, yeah, I agree. All right, so now we have an understanding why this rule happened. It sounds like, all right, one, it's somewhat to save the inspection company, right, industry.
I think that will
This is a
happen.
little part, a part of it.
Yeah, I think that was part of like the motivation from
Hmm.
home inspectors to some degree,
Hmm. Correct.
but from the legislature, that was not the consideration.
Correct. I'm gonna get to that part. And then the
Right.
next part is, of course, I really want this house, but I really want to know what I'm buying. But if I try to figure out what I'm buying, I might lose the opportunity to purchase the home.
Hmm.
So I have to go in not knowing if I truly want this home, and I could screw myself and my family, but this is the only way I could purchase this home,
For sure. You know,
right?
and that's the
So that's the
reality. Yeah.
second part. That's the
And
second part. All right. And so when did this all start? This new rule or the stock talks about changing this rule? When did it all start?
it started in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with and there's really like six people that were behind it all. There's Sean Rizzo from Tiger Home Inspections, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Mike Atwell, myself, Morgan Cohen from MKC,
Mm-hmm.
um, Jameson Malgeri from Another Level Inspections, and Alex Steinberg from
Mm-hmm.
JBS. Those are kind of like the people that, hey, we we pitched, we submitted a bill to the legislature, and the legislature gets anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 bill submissions each session, and each session is like a
Mm-hmm.
2-year session. In Massachusetts, they typically only pass 5 to 8 laws a year. So out of
Mm-hmm.
those 6,000 bills, it's very unlikely anything gets passed. But when I was meeting with legislators, I was driving all over the state. There's another there's another factor in all of this that
Mm-hmm.
made the legislature take action. And one of that, and we don't have this problem in Boston, but have you guys have heard of the Pyrite Foundation concrete issue?
No.
So there's this chemical that's been in some concrete in homes that were built between 1980 and like 2023. And what it does is it causes the concrete to crumble and expand and break apart. And the only fix is to rip out the entire foundation and put a new one in. And it's been a known problem in Connecticut, and it's a problem in central and western Mass. It hasn't been a big issue here, but I have heard of a property in Bedford, and another property in, I think, Danvers, that have had this issue. Nothing in the South Shore, nothing in the immediate surroundings of Boston. But when this happens, and I actually did an inspection on one of these homes, um, the concrete starts to break apart. You discover that you have to have it replaced. Your insurance company doesn't cover it. And if the bank finds out that you got this condition, they won't write, they won't loan you any money on an equity to replace it, and your insurance company will actually drop you. So the couple people, I shouldn't say couple, the people that have inherited this, and partly so, like I did an inspection of one family that had to waive their inspection. They had me come out like day two. They were there washing the windows. The movers haven't even come yet. This was a house in Shrewsbury. And I'm outside walking around. The couple's so happy, but they just want to do due diligence. They just want to know. And within 10 or 15 minutes, I realized that, this house is a failing foundation and they're going to need to rip it out. Um, and that involves jacking the house up, tearing out the foundation, ripping out their outdoor kitchen and patio that they had to put in. So we're talking $300,000, $400,000.
And
You know,
I tell my team all the time, that foundation, you have a foundation issue, just run. Just forget about it.
it's so
Let's go to another home. Let's go to another home. And this is already a phenomenal conversation. What's the foundation called again? Pirate, you said?
I'm gonna try to spell it. I might spell it wrong. It's a Greek word. Uh, Pyritite. Um,
And those Greeks, man.
I wrote.
Those ruins in Greece. Foundation always collapses.
Hey, no, that stuff is still standing. It's the stuff that we built, right?
Yeah, no, no.
This
But I
is
was
not
going to
spelled, but it's basically pyrite is how you say it. And that's close to the spelling. I just put it in the chat. There's
thank you.
actually there's a great I think an Instagram account of a company in Connecticut that replaces these, and they're just posting weekly of different homes that they're jacking up, ripping out the foundation, and showing you how to pour. But again, like it's this was tragic. That's not happening to everyone who waived a home inspection, but for that particular family, that's a tragedy. Like
Yeah.
that could financially ruin them.
Can I, so, before we get to the law and the new changes, I think it's important for us to speak about what can we do as a brokerage, um, as a top brokerage, as the best brokerage you ever interviewed with or, spoke to, as your number one go-to brokerage, John. Um, what 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 can we do to prepare our clients to either avoid inspection? When I say avoid, meaning, you know what, don't waste your time. This ain't the house. What should we be looking for when we do that initial walkthrough with buyers to say, well, we already see this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, that's a problem. We might want to go to the next one and not put an offer in this particular home because I already know what the inspector is going to say. Somewhat, right? But what should we be looking for? Minor things. I know we're not inspectors, but what should we be looking for when we show homes?
No, that's a great question. It's a loaded question. Um, honestly, I think, and I'll answer that, but I'll say it does start with really knowing your client and
Hmm.
understanding what their needs and tolerances are.
Yeah.
Like, a 26-year-old who watches YouTube might not be the guy who can do some of these handy repairs. But having said that, I think if it doesn't really look right, it probably isn't. So like I think I also say that anything can be fixed, but it's really up to the tolerance or the ability of the buyer to then get it fixed. But I do think foundation issues, like they can average around 20 to $50,000 to fix. And we have a lot of stone foundations in Boston. You should take a good look at it and just make sure there's not like any really unusual bows or like massive cracks that are offset. There's going to be cracks in every foundation, stone or concrete. The ones we worry about is when the plane of it changes or it starts out larger and goes smaller, and then that indicates that there's some differential settlement. It doesn't mean that like that's a catastrophic issue because maybe it moved and it stopped moving. But if I'm going to spend $50,000 on a repair, I'd love to put it in my kitchen. No one loves to know that you spent $50,000 to fix your foundation because you don't see that money back. You don't get to enjoy that. Um, that's kind of I think the foundation is a key one.
Got it. And how about so me personally, when I would show buyers, I would look for like termites, right? I would go to the seals, right?
Hmm.
In the cell, seal,
Oh, sill.
sill. Go to the sill, kind of poke my key in. That thing go right through. All right, something's happening here, right? And then of course looking underneath the sinks to make sure there's no. I mean, those are little things, but again, just looking what's going on. And then electrical. Oh, double tapping is crazy. Double tapping is one, and then also just knowing that do you have space in the electric box or you don't have space. That's also important. And understanding is the circuits is the circuits is up to date because electric companies, I mean, sorry, insurance companies won't allow you to insure that house if it's the old circuits, like the
Oh
very, very
yeah,
old
it's
ones.
the fuses
The
and
fuses, yeah.
and then the knob and tube.
The
So
knowledge, yep.
I would say if for your agents, it's look at the stuff coming out of the box because like
Yeah.
you can replace the box. The box
Right.
is 6 grand. But
Uh-huh.
if you are now watching those wires come out of the box and it's looking messy, they're really old, and the outlets are just have two prongs, not the three.
Well, yep.
That's
It's
something
not
that
grounded.
it's not grounded.
Yep.
I mean, so for me, like I can live in a house with an ungrounded outlet. It's not great, but like it is something that's going to have to be repaired at some point.
Yeah.
So, it's just knowing like, hey, budget some repairs for and updates for electrical because safety's key.
Exactly. And like I said, for Thumper, I'm happy a lot of at least half of the office is on today. But this conversation is important because it's Friday, Saturday and Sunday is they're out there showing homes. So even when you brought up the three prong versus two prong, right? Two prong that means the home isn't grounded, right? Most likely. And then even with the GFIs, right? Just making sure, hey, you need a GFI when close to a water source. So these are little things that we could say show our intelligence and let our clients know we know something about purchasing homes. I think what John, this was what I think you should do. You should do a 1 2 3, a small inspection process for a real estate agent, something small, nothing to take your job, but like if this crack is this big, like let's not waste your money calling, just move on because it's a lot. I see a lot of people waste money on something that the real estate agent could have found or someone else could have found. And then an inspector comes like some inspectors will do the inspection knowing they found a big issue 5 minutes into the job. Others will say, yeah, you know what? I found this. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to allow you to even pay me. This is a big issue. And if you want me to still go, I'll go, but I'm letting you know now, this is what I found.
Hmm. And I've said that it's delicate too, with a home inspector, like let's say torpedoing a deal like that, because I don't know the client like you guys do.
Yeah. Right.
So like I am very like I only have done that a handful of times in my career of 25 years,
Yeah.
only because like I had a sense of this client is a deer in headlights and this was a really big problem. But I think like that's the as an inspector, I love to hear from the realtor before I even get
Yeah.
to the property and say, hey, these are first time home buyers. They're real nervous. All right, like that helps inform me how and what I say is going to be
Hmm.
interpreted. I mean, it is what it is. I'm going to report on it for whatever it
Hmm.
is. But I've had people, I've seen some clients act, irrationally over something that I look at as a really minor repair. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's where I think like it's great when you have a partnership with the realtor that we can kind of communicate on a unified front saying, hey, I don't think this is a big deal, or yes, this is a big deal, and you really need to have a come to moment. Like, are you willing to accept this? You know,
Yeah. And I can only imagine since you said 2020 to 2020 to 2023, lawsuits went sky high.
there have been some. But it's tough to find data on it.
The connection,
Well, yeah, and in Massachusetts, when you buy a house and you sign it, you accept everything. It's really there's no warranty that the seller is giving on the house. So like the part of like the law is once I buy it, I own it all, you know, and that's where inspections really got their start because you know, you wanted to understand what you're buying. You can't go back to the seller and be like, hey, there's like mold and there's a roof leak and the boiler doesn't work. Like you bought it, you own it.
got it, got it. Um, hey, if you love this, if you loving this conversation, drop a seven. Thumbprint family, if you love this conversation, drop a seven. So so wait, are you gonna make the 1, 2, 3 booklet for
Who
the
me?
yeah,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
the
Okay.
president,
Oh, sorry.
you the big dog.
I'm the
Who's
big.
gonna make it if you don't make it?
So no, I did know. Like I'll get on an Instagram with T Call and we could do that. You know?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it together. Let's really write this out. I want something that look. This is what to look for. So again, new agents is all right. I know what to look for. Okay, you know what? Let's move forward. Let's call John. Or again, we could walk in and say, John already told me that this if the crack is doing this, let me explain this to my client. If they want to move forward with John, we'll call him. But he already told me about this crack, and I know what he's gonna say. Because I just think it's important not to try to take anyone's job, but I just see some clients had 4 inspections before they bought a home.
Mm, yeah.
That's a lot of
Yeah, that
money.
that is a lot. I honestly like it. I agree. It's a lot of money. I mean, that's 2 grand, 2,500 that you know, and maybe I again like not knowing any of the details of that, but
Yeah,
like let's pre-screen these homes, as you
that's
said.
that's what
You
I'm
know,
talking about.
you
Look,
know,
John, we're gonna create this. We're gonna be a thumbprint and John Gallagher. We're gonna sell it to the industry. You feel me? We're gonna go back to legislature and say, look, everyone need to buy this book. You feel me? And if you see where I'm going with John. But so next, I want to talk about is the rule now. What exactly is going to happen October 15th?
that's great. You know what? Do you mind if I share a screen? I can just put it
Of
up
course. Hold on.
and I think it's I've taken the law
You
is
all
less
set?
than 4 pages
Mhm.
and and I think just looking at the language is the best way to understand what's going to happen, and I can answer questions from there because I think
Okay.
it's like that's where people really get their questions. So let me just get to let's see here, share this. All right, let me
All right.
where are we here? Here we go. All right, I'm going to speed through some of this from current slide. All right. So I'm going to skip the brief history. We'll save we'll save that. We know why we got here. We talked about that. Oh, there's the pyrite. That's how you spell it. Um all right. Let's move on. Okay, so here's the law. You're not going to read this. I'm going to go to the next slide, but this is what the legislature passed, and it basically says that this executive office has to come up with regulations. And so from the regulations, these are the two big pieces of the law that you'll now need to know when you're making an offer. And that a seller, I mean, no seller can condition the acceptance of an offer on the buyer's agreement to limit, restrict, or forego their right to an inspection. Or the seller cannot accept to an offer to purchase from a buyer or agent who, in advance of the acceptance of the offer, informs the agent, either directly or indirectly, that they intend to waive, in whole or in part, their buyer's right to an inspection. So, that's fairly clear, but then how do you take this into practice? Like, what does that mean? Um, all right. So, what it means is that the offer forms that GBAR and MAR have created and we've been using for the last, I don't know, maybe 25 years are going to change because there will no longer be a box on the offer form that you can check a contingency or not check a contingency on the home inspection. So every offer that is now made is almost made kind of blind to the seller. The seller doesn't know if the buyer is going to do the inspection or not. So it's no longer that negotiating tool to get their offer ahead of everyone else's by waiving the inspection. Um, and and ultimately, because of that, because the buyer won't feel the pressure to waive their inspection, I think the mini, like, pre-offer inspections that have been happening probably become irrelevant because you have the security of being able to get the inspection if you wanted it, like once your offer gets accepted. So ultimately, I think this affects the sellers too, because now they know when they list a house that the buyer has the right to have an inspection before that P&S is signed. This is the language that was in the offer forms, and I'm not sure at Thumbprint if you've used both or if you guys are partial to using the GBAR one. The top is from MAR. They tend to use this a little bit more on the South Shore. In Boston and Western, like I guess Metro West and North, they use the GBAR language. But all of that language that you see in that offer form will have to change. And it's going to change by October 15th. And that's when this rule goes into place. So the rule is not yet in effect, but it's coming, and October 15th is the date. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Joanna?
Thank you, John. So I know it says that the new forms will not have that checkbox anymore to indicate if they'll be having a home inspection. What I was told is that the sellers or the seller agent will not be able to ask, or if they do ask or insinuate that they would like an inspection, there will be fines or fees. So, with that box being removed, will the seller's agent be able to ask if inspection will take place or not? And if so, are there any penalties for doing so?
That's a good question. I believe that they won't be able to ask. Because so let's and we play it out this way. So let's say you ask Susie if she's going to do an inspection, and she says no, I'm not going to do it, and she submits an offer. Um, if she's already told you that she's not going to do it, the law states that you can't present that offer to the seller because she's tainted it. She's already broken the law. So I think ultimately this is no longer like that discussion point or a way to make the offer more attractive to the seller. It's um, it's not supposed to be necessarily discussed. It's once the offer is accepted, the buyer then will inform the listing agent pretty quickly. Yes, I'm going to do the inspection. We can do this within 5 days, 3 days, 7 days. So I think in the offer form, though, there will be a point where they can come to an agreement on how long the inspection contingency, for lack of better words, will be. Elijah?
So with the example you just used, even in any case where somebody was trying to argue and say, okay, yeah, I could ask, you're putting yourself in a situation because if somebody asks and you say no and your offer gets accepted, they could just jam you up and say you only accepted it because it's the waived inspection. So you can get jammed up either way. So I guess it's unwise.
I think so. I think that's a good way to say it. I think it's it's ultimately the law is written to work with good faith actors. You know, like, and we know that there's always going to be people who are going to try to find ways around it, but
Right.
that's the case in everything. But you're right. Like, there is a component of you as a real estate license holder that, you know, you don't want to find yourself on the wrong side of this. And so both agents, the seller and the buyer's agent, have to act, you know, professionally to make sure that they don't run afoul of it. You know, how it's enforced, I mean, someone would have to file a complaint, and that would probably have to come through one of the agents. I don't know how that works at that point, but that's the intent. I hopefully I've and again, like I can only speak to what I know, and I'm not a real estate agent. I'm also not an attorney, although I've sat with and worked with attorneys on this. So I'm just going to try to give you my best answer as I can. Tahina?
Got you. Yep. You have questions in the chat too after Taina.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll go look at those two. Tahina, you have a question?
Yeah, I think it was kind of to that point that you were just making here. Like like how direct and does it have to be? How explicit or direct does it have to be? And I was thinking the example of like a letter to the seller where you might say, "Hi, I'm John, and I'm an inspector. I love your home. I'm very confident about it. Blah blah blah." And it could allude. So you didn't say I'm waiving because I'm an inspector. You're just saying that you are an inspector. You're kind of alluding to the fact that there may not be. Maybe you use other language, but it's not specific. It's not direct.
Well, I think that's a great question. And let me I'm trying to I'm trying to navigate this. How do I get back to my screen here? Let me just I'm sharing my screen, but now I can't see it. There was some language in there that I wanted to pull up, and I can't minimize my Zoom. um I think the big piece of language is that there's not it was written with the intent. The intent of the law was to not show or indicate that you're waiving the inspection. I think communicating to the seller that your buyer's a developer, I think, is a material fact. I think I would think that that's makes sense. I mean, it means that it's not going to run afoul to what you're saying. But I think going anything beyond that, like, oh, he's a developer and he's tearing the house down, I think may go into that gray area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Let me go look in the chat if I'm trying to see if there's anyone else has their hands up there.
I have my hand up, John.
Oh,
It's
sure, go ahead.
So I think this is going to be really interesting, only because in the climate we're in now, like for example, an offer I submitted a couple days ago, the list agent said the seller wants a clean offer, inciting that the other offer that she had in hand, they waived inspection, the seller selling the home as is, they're not in a position to make any repairs. It was a home that was in the family for a long time. Mother passed away. She said the seller's looking for a clean offer. She even went to the extent of asking to waive appraisal, but that's a whole nother issue for no whole nother training. But long story short, she said looking for a clean offer, no inspection. One we have in hand is a cash offer. However, your offer is higher if you waive inspection, whatever the case may be. Not even informational only. They just want waived inspection. So, with that being said, and how bold list agents have been in making that request, how enforceable is this? Meaning, is the onus on the buyer agent to say, oh, what you're saying is illegal now, I'm going to report you? Like, how enforceable is this, and when, at what point in the conversation or in the transaction or interaction can something be done? And of course, if it is done or reported, it's more likely than not the list agent's going to know it came from you, the buyer agent. So I'm just trying to think about how to navigate, circumstances where these things are still explicitly happening even after October 15th. And, what course of action needs to take place once these things are discovered.
I think that's a great question. And again, we're all playing in the same sandbox. So, we want to work together, buyers and sellers and so on and so forth. The law will be pretty explicit that, in Massachusetts, you can't create a contract that is contrary to law and regulation. And so you can imagine that, like, let's say the seller says that or puts that into the contract, the offer contract. When an attorney sees this, they'll be like, this is illegal. Like, you can't do this anymore. And I think part of the reason why this regulation was delayed, I mean, the law passed in 2024, and it was going to go into effect in June 15th. They've knocked it back to October 15th, is to make sure that MAR and GBAR have the ability to do some adequate training so that people don't default back to these practices. Like, and the example you gave is a great example. I think that's like completely unfair and somewhat unethical in the context of what this law will be. And I think, how will that be enforced? I think no attorney is going to sign, no attorney is going to be a party to an illegal contract. Does that make sense? So, like, it might win them the offer in the beginning part, but once that starts to go to P&S, I think there's going to be a checkpoint at some point that will stop that. And so I don't know what the best mechanism it is for you to be, like, as the victim, as your client, as the victim of this. I don't know if it's a complaint. I don't know what the best method would be. I'll say I don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you alluded to the reason that this has been prolonged is because there's a series of training that needs to be happening or that is taking place. Is that training internal, or is that training taking place with agents to help navigate this new law? Because I think that's really important. Because of course you're speaking to us from an inspector standpoint, which is great. But I think what's more important for us agents, whether we're on the listing side or the buyer side, is to really understand what the language is going to be, what that training entails, and how to navigate this new space that we're going to be in when it comes to contracts. Because you also made a reference to attorneys, right? That means
Mhm.
attorneys need to be well informed about this new law, and understanding that even before P&S, when they get a contract that says subject to appraisal, waived inspection, like, wait a minute, we can't even get to P&S because this is not even supposed to be on the contract. Now that it's been exposed, now that the seller has already accepted the offer, how do we navigate knowing that we've already let the cat out the bag now? Can we still move forward with this transaction? So I think there's so many layers to this now, beyond the fact that they're waiving inspection, but just how to navigate a space where it's on the contract, conversations are being had, what's the penalty, things of that sort. So I'm just trying to understand those trainings that you're referring to, who's conducting them and what spaces are they happening in.
That's a great question. So I know that Chris Law, they're like a closing attorney's office. They've begun some trainings. I think MAR themselves are having like a town hall meeting next week, a Zoom. So again, I don't know if you guys are members of MAR, Mass Association of Realtors, but they're having a 1 hour Zoom training on it. Um, in next week, I think on the 24th, between 10 and 11. I wasn't invited though, but that's okay. I'm not too upset. Um, so ultimately, I think what will help is once they create the new offer forms, that will help kind of guide people to stay within the rails. But um, I wish I could give you a better, fuller answer, Joanna, but that's I think that's the trainings they're going to start to come out more and more frequently, and I think that will give you the more nuanced answer that you need. Doris, did you have a question?
Good morning, John. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, I'm thinking from the listing perspective. I feel like whenever inspections are waived, it's because sometimes they can cost time in negotiating. And this might be a question for you, Alex. Um, what would you think about, like, let's say we had a seller that needed to close fast. Maybe if the seller paid for their own inspection and just kept it to share with the next accepted offer, would that be okay?
Well, dates and inspections two different things, right? So you could be biased based on the date, John, I would think, right? Because if someone
Oh,
said,
sure.
"Hey, I could close in 3 weeks,"
5 days
versus
even.
someone saying in 5 days, versus someone saying, I need 45 days. I could, okay, I'm going to accept I need to close fast. And I could also put that in the listing. Hey, seller's looking for a fast close. That doesn't mean you have to skip inspection. You could bring inspect at the open house with you if you want, but that doesn't mean you're skipping the inspection. It's just saying, hey, I gotta close fast.
Okay, so you wouldn't suggest that then, Alex? The seller getting their own inspection before listing.
I mean, to me, I always think that's smart, but this is what I also say is a lot of buyers are going to be like, "No, I'm gonna get my own." All right, because it's coming from the seller. A page might be missing. You just never know,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But yeah, but I think it's important. Like even with our training group, we doing a live training, right? We're gonna pay for inspector to come. Maybe it's John, inspector to come and teach us live of like what they do, what to look for, what to expect, how to prepare their clients for inspection. So I think it's important, but again, I believe buyers are still going to get their own inspection.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you, Alex.
Sure, but I will say if you can present an offer and saying you're going to close in like 7 days, that also is a way to kind of say we're closing fast. Like it kind of almost is another way to say my buyer's not going to do an inspection because we're closing
Yeah,
so fast. So I think that
correct,
that's legal and normal.
correct. And then Angel, was your question answered?
Yes, it was. It was the same question Joanna had asked. I think we kind of put it in the chat at the same time. So yes,
Okay.
it's still, as Joanna said, I still think that part's going to be a little tricky, because the paperwork, we always speak to the listing agents or buyer's agents before offers are accepted. So I still feel like the question's going to come up in those conversations.
Yeah,
So
it's going.
definitely
The,
navigate
the,
that.
I agree with you. It's so much. It's going to be. This is gray area city right now because one, you still risking the fact that your client might not get this listing, might not get this home. And then what do you do if you see, hey, it was some wrongdoing? But the home is already gone. The home is already closed with someone, a family. So now you say, fine, I'm gonna go sue, but your client is not getting the house no matter what. So that's a little gray area and tricky part as well. But I think what the and John, you could correct me if I'm wrong, this law is also bringing real estate agents in the picture where they could get fined as well,
It
right?
does. Yeah.
Wait, is it only the real estate agent or is the homeowner as well?
So the real estate agent can be held under the 93A deceptive practices like statute. The homeowner can't be held under that, but the law does apply to homeowners, if that makes sense. So like the penalties for an agent because they're a professional in the field is like the triple damages of 93A in the case of a lawsuit. The homeowner doesn't have that, but they're they still have to follow this, and I don't know off the top of my head how or what the penalty is. But again, like, I could buy a house by making an offer on a napkin. I don't need to use those MAR forms. But
Yeah.
at some point, an attorney's going to look at this and say, "Oh, wait a minute, we didn't do this." I guess the last thing I didn't really talk about is that both the seller and the buyer are going to sign a disclosure similar to the lead paint disclosure,
Hmm.
but that's going to inform them of their right. So like in most cases, like the seller now knows, yeah, the buyer has a right to do an inspection, and then the buyer's like, even if they don't know, or if they're, let's say poorly represented by somebody, oh, I have a right to do an inspection? Oh, well, I might just do it. So like I think that signed form is also will be another step that you will have to do in the process of all the paperwork you guys do. Like this is just like another layer of
So
a
is
legal requirement.
and so okay, that was about to ask you. So this is a requirement. So when you submit an offer, when a buyer is submitting an offer, this document has to get signed with every offer.
I don't know if it's at the offer stage or it's once the offer's accepted. I think it's once I don't know. But
Yeah,
there will be something that has to be signed, and I don't know when and where it is. My guess would probably be it would make sense to have it if you're listing and you're working with your seller. It's like have them sign that
correct. That
at
list,
the
yeah,
beginning. Just hey,
yeah,
you know this, and move on.
yeah. Okay, because it probably only makes sense at the offer stage. Because if you wait to PNS, that's
Then
too
it's too
late.
late anyways, right?
Yeah, so I would think, and this is a mandatory form moving for after October 15th. This form is mandatory in every single transaction.
Yes,
Got it.
as I understand it. Yep.
Okay. Taina?
So I had two questions. On the lead paint document, it's so really, does this affect lead paint in any way, inspections? Because on the lead paint, it gives you the opportunity to either waive or elect to have an inspection. And I know in the past people have looked at it like, oh, they want to do a lead inspection. Um, and it didn't necessarily hurt the transaction, but they were a bit concerned. The sellers were a bit concerned. So that's question number one. And then the question number two is, are there any other changes regarding inspections that we should expect? Maybe they're being lobbied now, but that we should expect for the future. It makes me think about, I think, Rhode Island, where there's certain things that they can and cannot do right now. Is there anything more coming down the pipe?
That's a great question. I think with the lead paint um, piece, that is still waivable. Let's say so you can check that or not check that box. Like I'm not using the lead paint contingency. You just sign the form. This one will be a little different because this you can't waive. Like you can't indicate that you're waiving it. You don't have to do it, but and in terms of changes in the inspection, as far as I know, there's not going to be any changes because the law references current inspection regulations in Mass. So a home inspection is dictated by its own regulations that were passed back in the early 2000s. Um, there's no like movement that I know of to change it, to limit it, or to make it more like uh, onerous or more than anything it is now. And in Rhode Island, that they did basically ban home inspectors from opening up electrical panels. And the what I was told was that the electrical union felt that only electricians should open up electrical panels, and the state agreed. And I think it's a tragedy because electricians aren't going to come on site for $200 to open up a panel, and now people are less protected. But I don't think that's going to happen in Mass, but that's what happened in Rhode Island. Oh, Tahina?
Thank
Do you
you. Thank you.
okay.
Yeah. And this is such a great conversation, and it's unfortunate Martin invite you to the meeting, but you here with us, bro.
Hey,
It's good.
this is much better than that meeting.
Absolutely. Um, wow, this October 15th, obviously the documents should be ready before October 15th.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I said, it's gonna be a lot of gray area. I guess we just gotta do our own due diligence and making sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do as real estate agents, um, and not get sued because I think it's going to be real tricky. And if we're not careful, it's not, those 93A letters it's going to be in
No
our
one wants to see that
mailbox,
coming.
our emails. It's going to be everywhere. It is going to be everywhere. So it's important that we do these trainings like these, and we definitely should have you back. I'm thinking even September, September
And I
and
could
August.
if you guys have a partnership with like a closing attorney, like I'm more than willing to meet up with them, and then we could kind of almost do like a joint presentation because they'll
Yeah,
be able to answer some of the questions that I'm that they're better to answer than I can.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I agree. I agree. But I'm happy we're doing this training now, and kind of preparing mentally. And then again, when October 15th come, we already have the documents. We know why, what we need to do, what we can't say. And it's gonna be, and I'm laughing because I can only imagine like the old mafia movies where now, real estate agents gonna be meeting in person. Yeah. They
It's all
waving
right.
they
Hey,
waving the inspection.
I did a present, and first of all, I really thank you for the opportunity to meet you guys virtually this way. Like, I think this is, I enjoy teaching. I'm doing this hopefully I provided some value. I was at a meeting last week, and I think I should have brought a bulletproof vest. I took so many arrows. People were really angry, and it's and I really appreciate how gracious you guys all were, and we all work in this industry together, and I hope to be partners and to have a good communication between everyone here.
No, no, thank you for that. I think we all understand. I understand one part is, the industry, y'all, the inspectors is about to lose their industry. That's one part. That's a huge part. And this is the way y'all feed your family. Just like, the laws that's changing in real estate that look like, they after our industry. And then we had to fight back, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I also do understand that it's a lot of lemons being sold. Let's just be honest, right? It's a lot of lemons being sold. And no matter what, real estate, and I'm talking to my team, you could say, oh, it was all the sellers, it's the seller fault, we have nothing to do with it. But your client is going to sue us too. Your client's going to bring us in the lawsuit, even though we have nothing to do with it. They don't have like we're not the developers, but the fact they bring us in because now they want us to put pressure on the actual person that knew about this issue. So, you know, this will also help us in a way where it will slow down our lawsuits. But also, developers can't sell lemons anymore, or sellers can't sell lemons anymore, right? Knowing something happened, about the concrete example, but got away with it because this person waived inspection,
I
or the
mean,
inspector or an inspector missed it, right? So I
I'll
think
just say
that's
this: like, this
go ahead.
puts all the responsibility and liability on me. This takes liability off of you as a buyer's agent and as a seller's agent. The like, and so I think like that's a good thing. Like, this protects people, it protects homeowners, and I mean it protects buyers, but it also protects you in the industry because I'm
Yeah.
the expert. I'm the one that's supposed to inform the person if there's a problem. I think this is another layer of protection for real estate agents personally.
Yeah. But then on the other side is where, my client is John. My client is John, and my John is an inspector, and he don't want to get this home inspected. But I can't tell this person, look, my John is an inspector, he's buying this home, but I can't tell you because, you know, of this new law. So John might miss out on this opportunity where he probably got it and could handle the repairs because he's an inspector, you know. So it's like I said, I see it on both sides. And I guess we would have to see, what is it more harm or not, right? So I think we just have to wait and see, and then all the gray areas. A lot of times when we have a rule change, few first year is kind of tough, and then we have to make some adjustments, and then after that, it's pretty good.
Well,
Yeah.
hey,
So
Alex, that was great. I am going to have to run. I do have an appointment to get to.
yep, no problem.
Please, if anyone has any questions,
You want
I
to put
want
your
to be a
contact
resource for
in
you guys. Yeah, I'll do that.
real
Um,
quick?
sure.
Yeah, and team, what a wonderful training. I hope you learned a lot today. I mean, yeah, I would think people will start after October 15th. They're gonna test you. They will test you. So again, these trainings are very important. And to watch this training again, you could definitely reach out to Vixen. It would be on, I believe, next week. But other than that, team, we woke up today. I don't know why you woke up. It's up to you to figure that out. Until then, enjoy your weekend. See ya.
Thank you.